Good Tuesday afternoon, and thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Lauren Lemanchek. Roads are clearing up dramatically this afternoon after an icy commute early this morning. A quick shot of freezing rain made a mess across the Twin Cities metro, leading to several crashes and backups. State Patrol says they've responded to more than 120 crashes. One of them was deadly. For now, though, that system that brought the ice has moved on and temperatures are starting to climb. We'll check back in with our weather team in just a little bit. Today, bills proposing assault weapons and high-capacity magazine bans are being reviewed by Minnesota House committees. Those discussions coming after a morning centered around Annunciation families at the Capitol. Nearly 6 months after the deadly shooting, Governor Walz joined victims, families, and advocates to discuss policies aimed at addressing gun violence. Those include that ban on military assault rifles and high-capacity magazines, as well as safe storage, reporting lost or stolen firearms, and expansion of early intervention resources.
Seen this so many times in America. Oh, there's nothing we can do. Isn't that tragic? We have another shooting, Uvalde, Parkland, and the names go on. And then to get to that list, now we have Annunciation. Well, the difference is in Minnesota that we're not willing to let this go. We are not willing to say this is the way we have to live, and we're taking action to do something about it. And I want to make this case that this legislative session, this is an opportunity to make Minnesota the safest state around gun violence while doing nothing to impinge on your Second Amendment rights.
With the House evenly split, votes on the proposals are expected to deadlock along party lines. One of this morning's speakers was Lydia Kaiser, a student shot and injured during the Annunciation shooting.
All children have the right to live, free from gun violence, in schools, churches, and in our communities. Elected officials have a duty to protect us from guns. No one should have to go through what we went through at Annunciation.
Meanwhile, Republicans are offering their own slate of school safety proposals in the House Education Policy Committee. We'll have updates on both proposals online as well as this evening at 4, 5, and 6. This afternoon, the Minnesota BCA is investigating after police shot and killed a double homicide suspect in Brooklyn Center. Police say that suspect had been released from jail just hours before the deadly shooting. Almost immediately after he got out, police say he drove to a home in the 4200 block of Irving Avenue to shoot and kill two of his cousins, a 23-year-old and a 14-year-old boy. Gordon Severson tells us more.
The family is very distraught.
A home filled with family members was the scene of a double homicide in North Minneapolis. Besides the two cousins who were killed, police say their grandmother was also in the home, taking care of 4 young children when the shots were fired.
There was also a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9, and 10-year-old inside the house at the time. Thank God they were not physically injured.
Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara says the suspected shooter was arrested back on February 15th on warrants for fleeing police and possessing an illegally modified handgun. O'Hara says family members believe the shooter may have targeted his cousins because he felt they were somehow involved in his arrest.
There's nothing to indicate that his cousins had anything to do with him being arrested.
O'Hara says the shooter took off immediately after the shooting, and while police surrounded the home to investigate, another man showed up at the crime scene with a gun.
We do not believe he is involved in the double murder. He came to the scene afterwards armed with a handgun.
Police say this second man was booked into the jail for assault and obstruction charges. No word on how he's connected to the shooter and the family. A family that is now forever changed.
Grandmother with children in the home, that's obviously supposed to be a very safe place. I can't imagine what Grandma and this family is going through right now.
Police say the suspect then went to a business district near the old Brookdale Mall, waving the handgun outside of stores. When police got to the scene, they were confronted by the man. Police say shots were exchanged and the man was injured and later died at the hospital. New this afternoon, Sun Country says it's sending 2 planes to Puerto Vallarta to pick up stranded passengers after flights were suspended Sunday and Monday due to unrest in parts of Mexico. Today at MSP, flights seem to have resumed their normal schedule, both departing to and arriving from Puerto Vallarta. The disruptions happened after the Mexican army killed a powerful cartel leader, sparking unrest across the country. And this afternoon, we're learning at least 70 people died in the attempt to capture the cartel leader known as El Mencho. Nearly 2,500 army troops have been deployed to the state of Jalisco to maintain order. Mexican's president says conditions have improved, telling reporters, quote, Mexico's calm. The U.S. Embassy is still urging tourists in Puerto Vallarta to shelter in place. Let's take a live look now from our nation's capital, where tonight President Trump will address both chambers of Congress to deliver the first State of the Union address of his second term. The president told reporters it will be long, saying there's a lot to talk about. He's expected to touch on immigration operations, including those here in Minnesota, as well as tariffs and the economy. At least 12 Democratic lawmakers plan to boycott the address. That includes Minnesota Senator Tina Smith, who will attend a rally on the National Mall instead. You can watch that address right here on KARE 11 starting at 8 tonight. Then on KARE 11 News at 10, we'll break down some of the biggest moments with political analysts Brian McClung and Jeff Hayden. This afternoon, the federal government owes more than $500 to the lawyers of a man detained by ICE. According to court documents, a Minnesota judge found the government violated an immigration-related court order. Documents say a Mexican national was flown from Minnesota to El Paso 2 days after the court said he could not be moved out of state. The judge ordered the government to compensate his lawyers for having him fly back to Minnesota. Continuing coverage of the legislative session now, as we enter week 2, fraud continues to take the spotlight. This time, we have a possible roadmap to addressing the widespread deception across Minnesota programs. Lou Raguse shares the latest plan from Governor Walz's appointed Director of Program Integrity, Tim O'Malley.
Good morning.
From the legislature's Fraud Prevention Committee.
And why aren't they held accountable yet?
To the governor's Director of Program Integrity.
We need to hold accountable commissioners, mid-level supervisors, and frontline workers.
The question of accountability continues to follow both the investigations into fraud in Minnesota's social service programs and the plans to fix and prevent fraud moving forward.
I think there has been inadequate accountability for some.
Tim O'Malley released his 57-page report he calls a roadmap to program integrity and fraud prevention. Similar to what the state's legislative auditor recently told KARE 11, O'Malley says there needs to be a cultural shift among state workers overseeing the programs to understand it's their job to ensure taxpayer money is properly spent.
And I think there became a mindset of our job is more based on compassion than compliance, and that's misplaced.
Within the state's EIDBI program, known as Autism Services, it was revealed at this morning's committee hearing that fraud occurred and was unable to be caught, in part because the legislature created the program without requiring providers to be licensed. DHS Commissioner Shireen Gandhi says other programs have that in common.
I don't think anybody intentionally tried to design them without these controls, but of the 14 high-risk programs, about 5 are licensed.
As DHS moves to require licenses of the 500 autism centers, Inspector General James Clark revealed an astounding figure that calls into question how many providers are legitimate. Only 6 of the 500 autism centers have applied to be licensed so far.
Unless this gets cleaned up and really cleaned up, and fast, there's going to be a push probably to get rid of this program.
Tim O'Malley says the structural problems allowing fraud in Minnesota go back decades, as a staggering amount of warnings and suggestions were made without them being implemented. That's why he says one of the most important things the state needs is an independent monitor to ensure these steps get put into action. New this afternoon, the state is settling a $1 million lawsuit with Fleet Farm. Attorney General Keith Ellison filed the lawsuit in 2022, accusing the business of negligence. The lawsuit says Fleet Farm was selling guns to people who would then give or sell them to others, also known as straw buyers. Along with the $1 million settlement, Fleet Farm is also taking steps to prevent those kind of purchases. That includes improving employee training and adding software to track sales across stores. Right now, authorities are trying to figure out what sparked a massive fire at a hotel in Superior, Wisconsin. Take a look at this video. Flames bursting out of the Superior and Sage Hotel overnight. That's just off 535 in downtown. Right now, we don't know what started it. Our news partners on the scene saw people getting treated for smoke inhalation. 20 people were taken to a different hotel. New today, the Guthrie family is now offering $1 million for information on their mom's disappearance. Nancy Guthrie has been missing for over 3 weeks. Authorities believe she was taken from her home on February 1st against her will, possibly in the middle of the night. Right now, investigators have not identified a suspect in the case, but have released doorbell camera footage of an armed and masked man outside of Guthrie's house the morning she disappeared. Today marks 4 years since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine that launched the biggest land war in Europe since World War II. As the war enters its 5th year, the conflict has led to numerous casualties, cities reduced to rubble, and global peace still under threat. And this afternoon, the war shows no signs of ending. Despite months of U.S.-led negotiations, there's been little progress in achieving a peace deal. Joined by European leaders for a prayer service in Kyiv today, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky urged President Trump to visit Ukraine and see for himself the suffering endured by his nation. The Kremlin said that the invasion will continue as Moscow demands Ukraine cede its territories and renounce its bid to join NATO. Stick with us. We have more news and weather coming up after the break.